Fraser Institute ranks Nevada as the best place to do mining business for make mining investments. I beg to differ. Kentucky is even better in that all of our assets rest on private land. We don't have to deal with the federal government. We don't need a permit to drill. And CleanTech put out a news release just recently, 2 weeks ago, that the company is preparing a mining permit to submit by the end of the year and potentially making a construction decision, mining production decision this time next year.
Good day here, Steve Yang here with Natural Resource Stocks. I have with me John Lee, CEO and Executive Chairman of CleanTech CTV. John, how are you today?
Good to be back, Steve. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on. So John, before we start, if you can give us the ticker, the website, how people can find CleanTech CTV, where you're trading.
Certainly, when I come to your program in September, about 8-9 months ago, we talked about CleanTech. The symbol is CTV, Charlie Television, CTV. And our website homepage is cleantechctv.com.
Well, John, tell me about CleanTech. I mean, for those of us who don't know, if you can give us just kind of the brief history of where this inspiration came from and what kind of company are you?
It's a company that spun out of Silver Elephant about 4 years ago, focusing on North America critical minerals. So we started out with vanadium and nickel. Subsequently, we sold the nickel project to the First Nations that was on their land, and they liked our project so much they forced our hands, and we had to forfeit that project. And then we used the money to start staking and acquiring fluorspar projects in Kentucky. So currently, CleanTech has two verticals. One is to do with vanadium, which is critical minerals in Nevada, and then the other one is where we spend a lot of time on right now, and that is fluorspar in Kentucky.
So where are you right now? So the vanadium project is in Nevada, and the
Yes.
fluorspar project is in Kentucky. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you can tell us kind of the stages they're in, do you see yourself as having two flagships right now? What kind of gets the priority in terms of time, money, and resources?
Right now, it's all about fluorspar. And the reason being is vanadium. Well, first of all, fluorspar and vanadium, both of which I can call the energy metals or energy critical minerals, because they all got to do with energy production and energy storage. Vanadium batteries is one of those proven technology. But unfortunately, vanadium prices are down right now because the majority of the vanadium is used for steel rebar, reinforcement bar constructions. And the construction activity has not really rebounded since COVID. So the project's on standby, and nonetheless, vanadium project does demonstrate the company's ability to navigate the permitting and engineering sort of obstacles and challenges in the United States. In that, CleanTech is one of the very few companies that were able to reach the record of decision, positive record of decision from Bureau of Management for the EIS, Environmental Impact Statement. So that is a federal permit. And I believe we're the only Canadian mining company that were able to reach that, achieve that milestone. However, right now, Steve, it's all about fluorspar. Fluorspar prices has gone up 50% in the last 3 years, and it's all got to do with energy storage and energy production. For your audience, if I can just rehash real quick, for those, I was coming program 6 months ago, 9 months ago, we talked about that, is that I'm sure you probably have some uranium bucks in your audience, is that every uranium yellow cake coming out of the ground need to be married with 6-fluorine. That is the gasification process to levitate the uranium into gaseous form, of which then you go through the centrifuge process. It's kind of like spinning your dryer for laundry.
Yeah.
To spin out the U-235, that's the fissile uranium, from the U-238, that's the plutonium, heavy uranium. And that is the fissile uranium that can go through the fission process, of which you can bombard with neutrons, and the fission happens, and the energy gas production happens. So every uranium requires 6-fluorine to be married, to levitate, and to go through that enrichment process. Similarly, a lot of people talk about batteries. Batteries are used for EV, and also a big element of batteries that nobody talks about is artificial intelligence. And the coming new sort of the new renaissance of robotics. in that
Yeah.
six fluorine atoms is required to be married to lithium or sodium. So fluorine acts as a salt. Think of a battery, right? The cathode is the transition metals in manganese, nickel, and iron, and cobalt, and the anode is graphite. But what's in the middle is the salt, the swimming pool. Think of the swimming pool, and that is fluorine. You need to add
Yeah.
fluorine to be married to the lithium and sodium. These ones are the soldiers that carry the charges back and forth between the anode and the cathode. So sort of I will call it a bit of a fluorine fluoride it's a bit of like Robin to the Batman, the unsung hero that is powering the energy storage and energy production. And there's a lot of talk right now, Steve, about data centers consuming massive amount of water and power. And in Georgia, Michigan, in Nevada, California, and Texas, they're building data center Texas, like 6 times the football fields. And these data centers require tens of gigawatts of power. And just case an example, like the largest nuclear power plant in North America, Bruce Power, that's only like 6 megawatts. It took like more than a decade to build.
So you're trying to capitalize on the fluorspar low prices right now. Is the vanadium project on hold as you kind of are you shifting gears here? What kind of project do you have over there in Kentucky?
Yeah, certainly, Steve. We can talk. Happy to talk about the vanadium project. It's a project the company spent over $20 million and assembled a mineral strike of over 21 kilometers, several distinct deposits, federal permit ready, majority of the state permits being issued already. So I will call the project shovel ready, pending higher vanadium price. The company actually also bought a ranch to secure the water and the potential sage-grouse credits. That's kind of the wildbird credits required to commission the project in Nevada. So that project is shovel ready, pending higher vanadium prices. However, if we could just go back to when I talk about fluorspar, well, fluorspar prices gone up already 50% in the last 3 years because China turned into an importer from being a net exporter. And China consumes today 70% of the global fluorspar supply,
Yeah.
even though itself produced 60%. That just shows you how acute the situation is. China right now is consuming around 7 million tons of fluorspar. And whereas the United States today is only at about 500,000 tons. So if the current administration want to achieve energy independence, want to supply semiconductors, data centers, nuclear power plants, building batteries, and for robotics, for EVs, for energy storage, for solar and solar farms and wind farms.
You're very bullish on fluorspar. I believe it's U.S. critical mineral. My
Yes.
understanding is that it's very dominated by China, like you said. It's used for steel, batteries, semiconductors, fridge technology stuff. But what, first of all, are there other major producers, any, if at all, domestic producers here? Who else is doing this?
Yeah, Steve, China produced 6 million tons of fluorspar domestically, but it's not enough. So it's going into Mongolia, which is the third largest producer. Mongolia does about 1 million tons. So China is consuming 7 million tons. It's still not enough. It's going to Africa and buying up African fluorspar. The only really viable or sizable producer to speak of is Mexico. And they do about 1.5 million tons of fluorspar. So if you look at Mongolia, China, and Mexico together, the three amigos account for 85% of global fluorspar production. United States has next to zero, no meaningful fluorspar production to speak of. 90% of the fluorspar is coming from this Kentucky Fluorspar District, of which CleanTech is the dominant player today. We already assembled land patches the size of Manhattan, 17,000 acres with over 20 distinct deposits. So we really grabbed the bull by the horn. As I mentioned to you, the current fluorspar consumption in the US is only 500,000 tons. Most of it comes from Mexico. Mexican fluorspar used to sell at around 30% discount to the Chinese fluorspar. But the Chinese, being a competitor, has evaporated. So what you're seeing is the discount that the Mexican offered to the Americans has completely gone. In fact, in some areas, the Mexican is selling at a premium to Asian fluorspar because of the because of the shipping, right? Because saving of the shipping rates. There is very little industrial substitute because fluorspar is one of the most reactive elements in the periodic table. It is the most reactive. And that's why it is able to tame the tiger, what I call it. Once fluorspar marries with lithium, right? Marries with sodium, marries with hydrocarbon, and marries with sulfur, and marries with uranium. It's like, let's talk about semiconductor, for example. NVIDIA and TSMC is building huge manufacturing facilities in Arizona. And fluorspar is required to carry all these exotic trace elements with other argon and xenon gases to carry the elements into the chamber. And then fluorspar gas, fluorine gas is used to etch and imprint these circuits onto the wafer. And then towards the end, fluorine gas, hydrofluoric acid gas is used to carry away the debris and to dissolve and to eat away the debris from the chamber. So semiconductor applications account for around 5% of the total fluorine consumption today. But that number is rapidly rising.
So you purchased this property, and so I can tell you're excited about fluorspar, but how much fluorspar do you have? If you can tell me a little bit about more about the Kentucky property you've obtained. It's my understanding it's got some huge mining history there. Why is that significant, and how much do you think you have?
Yeah, Steve, this is a undiscovered, underappreciated district. It's called Illinois Kentucky Fluorspar District, IKFD, which accounted for 90% of the historical U.S. fluorspar production, especially in World War I and World War II. Recall that 30% of the fluorspar today is used as a fluxing agent for aluminum and for steel production. So what happened is when you are dissolving, when you're taking the iron ore, right, and aluminum ore from the ground, fluorspar is fluorine gas is used to create that protection layer from oxidation and eats away the impurities. So it's only after World War II, up to about 1970, that U.S. production stopped because the Chinese low-price fluorspar flooded the international market. But this district had over 30 million tons of historical raw fluorspar production from this district. So all these chemical companies, refrigerant companies, steel companies, and this company that like John, this project we used to buy from you before 50 years ago. Currently, CleanTech is one of the largest, if not the largest, fluorspar landholder in the district. The district measures around 600 square miles. And the land holding is around 15%, 10 to 15% of the overall space. However, these assets we've acquired is a size of Manhattan sitting on over a dozen different faults, 20 different distinct deposits. The way you look at, Steve, is if you've been to Manhattan, right, you have Union Square, you have Chelsea, you have Times Square, you have Central Park, you have Harlem, and you have Upper East Side, Upper West Side, Lower Manhattan. So think of it, and Statue of Liberty. Think of Manhattan as our land package, and we have all these different areas. So there is a whole lot of things to do. I mean, Steve, we can talk about permitting a little bit. Fraser Institute ranks Nevada as the best place to do mining business for mining investments. I beg to differ. Kentucky is even better in that all of our assets rest on private land. We don't have to deal with the federal government. We don't need a permit to drill. And CleanTech put out the news release just recently, 2 weeks ago, that the company is preparing a mining permit to submit by the end of the year and potentially making a construction decision, mining production decision this time next year.
So just so I'm clear, did I hear that drilling is projected to start August 1st, like a couple weeks from now?
Yes.
And that's just right around the corner. Is that going as your things are? Is that where things stand right now? And where are you heading into that?
Yeah, it's going to be end of August, early September, subject to availability. Everything's backlogged. And the idea right now, Steve, is not, the company is not in the mood to window dressing or gaslighting our shareholders, but rather everything that we do is geared towards production. So we're not going to drill anything more than necessary to come up with a mine plan with enough feed to the first year, just the first year of production. The processing plant is envisioned to be at around 500 tons per day, or at about 200,000 tons of processing per year. And that will be about, after recovery, around 10% of the U.S. current fluorspar consumption. So we're going to produce around 60 to 80,000 tons of fluorspar per year. I think that's a very good size, not necessarily to disrupt the current sort of supply demand equilibrium and introducing this as a new player, and also to demonstrate a proof of concept that we can dig fluorspar out of the ground without challenges, without the NGOs, or without any issues.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's get to your financing. Tell me about your recent raises you've had, how much cash you have in the bank and how much runway you have.
So the company has been very cognizant and really watching out for anti-dilution. However, we're not going to do about $1 million financing right now. We'll look to close by the end of July. And that $1 million is going to go into our drill program and our continued permitting program. In order to get to the finishing line of submitting the permit, but in terms of land holding, in terms of progress, in terms of understanding of the fluorspar space, in terms of drill program and dialogue with offtakers and just knowledge of the fluorspar space, we're a lot further along than what we were 6 months ago. So we're gonna wrap this financing. We're gonna wrap up this financing the next couple of weeks, and we're gonna start our drill program. And then coinciding with the release of our drill results and the submission of our permits, we could be looking at potentially raising a bit more money to get us to the point where we sign an offtaker agreement and potentially getting some financing from our offtaker by the end of the year.
John, if I want to go to your ownership, if you can just tell me about the share structure, if you can break down the options, warrants, any significant ownership that comes from insiders or institutions. Is it 60?
60. CleanTech was spun out of Silver Elephant, so a lot of the CleanTech shares were dividend to Silver Elephant shareholders. So a number of them had kept those shares, and that's why we have a very tight share structure. The company has not raised any money in the last 3 years. And so there was no 2-cent financing or founder shares at a penny a stock. And I believe, but when CleanTech went IPO in 2022, it was a $10 million raise at 70 cents. Our website has all the technical details, the maps, the drill data, historical documents, and all the news release archives. And yeah, it's exciting times ahead. Toronto bankers are doing league tables of ounces in the ground and theoretical cash flow. North American investors don't do that. American investors don't do that. So what we have to do is generate cash flow and show and demonstrate that every ton of fluorspar we produce out of the ground can yield a profit. And the product is marketable, commercially marketable, desirable by the largest consumers of fluorspar in the United States. In the field of nuclear power plant, in the field of chemical refrigerant, in electrolyte production, in steel making, aluminum making, in surface coating for solar panels, in semiconductor etching and printing and chamber cleaning for the TSMCs, right? So people can extrapolate that. And so that is a missing piece that we see. And that's what I mentioned to you is we want to get a bona fide offtake partner and laid out a financing plan to get this mine into production. I think then there's a lot of guys that are sort of sitting on the other side of the sidewalk with a flashing red, right? So what we need to do is turn that the light from red to green, and that's what we're doing. That's why we're working with our partners and working with guys in the ground and working with our offtakers and working with the Kentucky Mines Reclamation Enforcement on the permitting agencies to get our permits submitted, to get our drill holes in the ground, to get our local community on the same page, to get our offtaker signed. So there's a lot of work ahead in the next 3 to 6 months.
Well, John, look forward to following your story. For those who are listening, I personally am not an investor of CleanTech Vanadium yet. That may change. And John Lee and CleanTech CTV have not paid for this interview. And so please do your due diligence. I'm not giving investment advice. One of the ways you can do that is to reach out to John yourself, follow their ticker, check out their website, reach out to John with any questions you may have. John, if you can be so kind as to give us the ticker, the website, contact information one more time.
Certainly. It trades out at TSX Ventures. The symbol is CTV, and on OTC over the counter is CTVFF, Frank. There's actually more volume in the OTCs. I look forward, Steve, to update your audience in the weeks and months to come.
All right, sounds good. Look forward to it. Thanks, John, for being here.
Thank you, Steve.